Hi, good afternoon, everybody. It's Friday again, another live Friday session. So if you've joined any of these previously, you'll know that what we're trying to do here is contribute towards this reform or die message that Keir Starmer and Wes Streeting are giving us that I completely agree with. I started these sessions about 6-8 weeks ago, and we started off with live sessions talking about live topics that were particularly problematic, and we had a really good discussions. And I started to get feedback around, can we have more productive, proactive, solution-based sessions? So that's what we've been doing. This is the third one of these solution-focused sessions. I'm really looking forward to today's session. Matt Sturgis is going to lead it for us. I have to say that I've engaged with lots of people over the last 6 months on LinkedIn. And I think Matt is probably the one where I always go to first, and the morning reviews it's absolutely brilliant content. So I'm sure today is going to be fantastic. We'll just give a quick round robin of the panel members so we can just do a 60-second introduction, and then we'll hand over to Matt and he can talk us through the session. And we've also got Insight Genie ready to go for people in the audience to contribute. So at 12:45 we can engage with your thoughts and your recommendations, because ultimately this is a solution focus. So as we're going through this, if you believe that there's things that Matt can do differently or support him in any way, please feed that through into Insight Genie, and that'll be fantastic for Matt going forward, but also for us just to finish off the session with. So I'll start off with my quick intro. I'm Anthony Lawton, founder of Fit to Care and Insight Genie. I'm a dedicated public sector advisor. My passion at the moment in particular is cognitive science and behavior change, and combining that with AI so that we can make massive improvements in what we do and how we serve citizens. I believe that if we can engage the frontline staff in particular using AI, we can make massive change to affect millions of lives. So that's really my drive. So I'll hand over to Ian next, and then Chris, and then Matt can kick us off. Over to you, Ian.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ian Washington-Smith. My company's called Mindsmith Thinking, a little bit distinct from Matt's, but we actually do very much the same type of things. So my thing is really about helping people have a deeper understanding of thinking and behavior. I think what we've got so far isn't as good as it could be. And there are things that we can do to help us solve some of the problems that keep repeating themselves if we change perspective and share knowledge on how thinking works.
Brilliant. And then over to you, Chris.
Sure. I'm Chris Cotter. I'm based in Japan, and it's 9 o'clock, a little after 9 o'clock tonight. So I'm running on fumes, but I'll do my best to have some good contributions to the discussion. For 20 years, a little bit more, I've been in education and professional development, working primarily in Japan and Asia. And now I'm working with individuals around the world, doing private coaching, especially for new managers, new leaders, and people who are struggling with their teams, trying to get them to be more collaborative, be more supportive, and be able to hit their goals more effectively.
Fantastic. And then over to you, Matt. And I just forgot to say on my little introduction, if everybody on LinkedIn can comment to us and engage with us through the comments section in LinkedIn, that'll be fantastic. And we really encourage you to chip in as we're going. Over to you, Matt.
Great. I'll just share my slides and then we'll crack on.
Right. I need to then just open those up for you. There we go.
Just confirm you can see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent. Right, so just a very quick potted history for me. So I started life as an engineer, got into sales, ended up running businesses. But I became an engineer because I'm very curious, a deep need to understand how things work. And that turned to trying to understand how our mind works. So that's how I've arrived at where I am now. So, user guide to the mind. The simple idea that I've had for a long time is our mind is the most powerful piece of kit we've got. Far outweighs any other piece of technology, but nobody gave us a user guide or even a quick start guide, and it's not as intuitive to use as an iPhone. So a lot of the things I've been doing for the past few years is trying to help people with understanding how our minds work, particularly with some insights that I had. So my journey into this really started one snowy day many years ago. I'd read a lot about how the mind works, wrote 3 books worth of material, done nothing with it. And a friend reached out and said to me that they'd been dealing with the effects of a trauma, childhood trauma they had 60 years earlier. They trained themselves in every psychological process you can imagine, some of the more traditional ones and some of the more interesting ones, and nothing had worked. So we went out for a short 2-hour walk in the snow, and I just shared one idea buried in the back of one of my books. And then the next day, I called him Tigger because he was like the children's character, just bouncing around with so much energy. And he said, this has changed me already. And then 2 weeks later, he said to me, I've now chosen to go back to my childhood memories because they're not painful anymore. I thought that is just incredible. And I'm enjoying the good bits that I'd forgotten about. So he implored me to do something about it. So I ended up writing a book about that process and other things about how the mind works, nuclear powered resilience, and started that journey. But he also asked me, how come what I told him worked and all the other stuff didn't? So I drew 2 lines in the snow with my foot. And I said, imagine they're railway tracks. And the one at the bottom, the old one, is the neural pathway that was your trauma, the thing that happened to you. And all the training and all the things you had just got you to relive it in different ways and just made that deeper and stronger. All we've done is creating a new neural pathway that's about unconditional love, which is something we all want, love and to belong to something. And you'll start using that new neural pathway more and more often. And metaphorically speaking, the old one will grow weeds over it because it's not so strong. It's still there. It's still part of who you are. So it's things like that I do that are very simple. And it took him 3 or 4 minutes a day. It's fun to do. And it changed what he ended up doing. So we spoke earlier about Insight Genie. So Insight Genie is Anthony's tool for getting people's ideas together of how they can do things differently. So the challenge I've got for you is I'm going to share a bit more about what I do in a minute and give you some real useful examples that you can take away. So on the left is what I do today. But my big, hairy, audacious goal is deliberately ambitious to see me out. And I've told my daughter I'm getting to 124, by the way.
Matt, sorry, I think you've not changed the slides.
It's changed here on my screen. Is it
still on the first one?
Oh.
And I was just going to say, could you make it bigger as well so we can't see we can see just the main slide? So
I'm sharing the slides, and it's on my screen, and it says that I am sharing them.
No, we're just on your slide 2 at the moment.
Hang on, let me come out of it and go back in and see if that changed.
So that has moved, yeah.
Okay, let me go back into it. What slide are you seeing now?
So we're on slide 7 today and tomorrow.
Okay, that's the one we should be on. Okay, I don't know quite what happened there. So my big, hairy, audacious goal, which is super ambitious, and I may not ever get there, but it's deliberately designed to be that, is to get 10 emails a day from people saying you've helped change my life. Now, currently, I get about 2 or 3 a month. So that's what I want your help with is what I can do to get to more people to help them. But the next one I'm going to share with you now is some practical things that you can use.
Okay, brilliant.
And that's if you need it for later, the QR code to Insight Genie, and those are the 3 questions that will come up when you get into that.
That's not moved either.
Yeah, it didn't move either.
Okay.
That's it. There we go.
I'm going to have to come out and go back in each time. Okay. So, right.
I can actually share them for you. Let's get onto slide 10, and then after that, I'll do the sharing and click it forwards for you, Matt, if you want.
Okay. So you're going to. So if I stop sharing it.
I was just thinking, do you want to do the video first? Because
okay. Yeah. Let me get to that bit, and then I'll swap over to you. So let me come out of that. Change the slide. So I'm going to show you a quick video. A warning: there'll be 5 seconds of adverts at the beginning. And there's no way I can get out of it with YouTube. But the challenge I've got for you is I want you to keep an eye on the players with the white tops. and I want you purely to count how many times they pass the ball from one person to the other, nothing else. So if you just keep an eye on the players with the white tops and tell me how many times they pass the ball. So can I just confirm, Anthony, that's all, you can see this on the screen at the moment, can you?
Yeah.
Great,
Yeah.
excellent. I'm going to hit play. So we get a couple of seconds of adverts and then it will go into the video.
So we can
Nope.
hear it, but we can't see any movement, Matt.
Okay, let me come back out. Go back in. Let me just try again. Anything?
No, it's not moving.
Okay.
We're celebrating 50 million.
Let me try and go through to a screen and see if I can make it play.
Okay. If I stop sharing?
How many times the players wearing white? Count how many times the players wearing white pass the ball.
So if you can pause the video now, please.
The correct answer is 16 passes.
If you pause it for now. If you
Did
stop,
you spot the gorilla?
can you stop it?
Yeah, there we go.
So it'd be interesting how many times people, if maybe in the chat, they can type how many times they think the ball was swapped. Just see what comes up.
Unfortunately, I think that I let that video go too long to this story.
That's all right. Well, if you bring
I think I'd got 10.
10, okay. If you could bring the
I
video.
had 15.
Sorry,
I had 15.
15. That's pretty close. It's pretty close.
Close.
So if you could bring the video back up, please, Anthony, and then I'll. Oh, we've got someone with 16. Max has got 16.
All right, hang on.
John Paul's got 16.
We definitely need to load the videos next time because it's very difficult going through.
Yeah.
We go to that and share. Okay.
For people who haven't seen or heard about a video like this before, about half miss the gorilla. If you knew about the gorilla, you probably saw it. But did you notice the curtain changing color or the player on the black team leaving the game? Let's rewind and watch it again. Here comes the gorilla, and there goes a player, and the curtain is changing from red to gold.
That's crazy.
When you're looking for a gorilla, you often miss other unexpected events.
Thanks. You can stop it now.
And that's the monkey.
So I'll go back to sharing my slides. So and then I'll explain why that's important. So hopefully you can see the slide with 3 images on it. Yep. Can you see the slide?
That was Katie's. Sorry, I can't see your slides coming up as sharing.
Okay. Hang on, bear with me.
Katie was just causing some feedback, so I've just turned her off for a second.
All right, hang on. Right, how about that? Can you see that?
Yeah, that's come up. It's still quite small, though. I don't know if you can make your slides bigger.
On my screen, it's as big as it can
Okay.
be. So anyway,
Okay.
I'll talk it through.
Tell you what, let me share slides then.
Okay.
Better. It's clear.
There we go.
Brilliant. Thank you. So yeah, the whole point of that was an interesting exercise. Some people have seen that video before, so they know what the answer is. And those people that know what the answer is, sometimes they know the gorilla's coming on, so they think, yeah, I'm ready for that. But they miss that a player in black has gone off, and they miss that the screen's changed. So it's about what you focus on. So if I put that into practical example, let's imagine you're thinking about buying something, a new car, a TV, or a holiday, or something like that. Let's say it's a Volkswagen Golf you've got your eye on. And suddenly you start thinking about that, and you notice a Volkswagen Golf at the local Tesco's. You notice it at your friend's house, where you work. They were always there before, but you start noticing them. You start to be far more aware of them. So, sorry, next slide. I was pressing the next slide, but nothing is happening because I'm not operating it. Thank you. So what if you started noticing that? If you could go to the next slide. So it's a very important part of our brains called the reticular activating system, which is a small bunch of neurons right towards the sort of almost in the neck. And the whole purpose of the reticular activating system is to focus. Now, it takes input from 4 of your senses. Smell is not one of them. That goes straight into the hippocampus. That's memory. So that's why if you smell something, it takes you straight back to a memory. That's why it does that. But it takes the other 4 senses and looks at your past experiences and memories and pulls in anything that it thinks is relevant. So in this case, you've given it the idea that you're after a Volkswagen Golf. So clearly that's important for you. So it's focusing out all the other cars and just helping you notice that one. So if you can move to the next slide, please. So, and it's the reticular activating system is mainly programmed, if you like, with images, but also emotion as well. But particularly images. The images you start to give it your mental images that you see in your mind's eye. If you could move to the next slide, please. So I call this the belief cycle. So let me give you something a bit silly example, because that way you'll remember it more. Let's say you've got a belief that all men are over 6 foot tall. Bit of a silly belief, but there we go. So you start to give yourself that thought and image that all men are over 6 feet tall. Your reticular activating system starts noticing tall men. It starts to ignore more men that are not 6 foot. So you start to get information coming in that backs up your belief that all men are over 6 feet tall. And as that proof accumulates, as we go around that circle, it strengthens your belief that you are right. Ah, yes, all men are over 6 feet tall. So it strengthens whatever you think you believe, whether it's right or wrong or correct or incorrect. It doesn't matter, because that part of the brain doesn't really care. So if you move to the next slide, please. So there's some great quotes that sum this up. The top one is my daughter's favorite one. She found this when she was about 8. She thought she could, so she did. The one that a lot of people have probably heard is Henry Ford. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So that relates to how the reticular activating system works. Whatever your belief is with the image you give it, it will help you and support you to get there. If you go to the next slide, please. So yeah, images and emotions are the key things. So next slide. So let me give you a practical example. Taking a penalty. And if you equate taking a penalty to something else in life, like a goal that you want to achieve, something you're working on, you've got 2 options in terms of images you can give your mind, and particularly your reticular activating system. You can give it an image of the ball going in the back of the net and you achieving your goal, or you can be thinking, God, if I get this wrong, it's going to be really embarrassing, and you missing the penalty, tripping up before you get there, all those sort of images. So it's the same amount of effort, but your reticular activating system will take whichever of those versions of those images you're given it, and it will filter out all the information that's coming into you from 4 of your senses and your past memories, and help you get towards that goal. So if you start thinking about missing the penalty, or think, okay, fine, you want to miss the penalty, I'll help you. So it's a really important part of your mind. So the message here is to nudge our thoughts back to the equivalent of putting the ball back in the back of the net. Move to the next slide, please. So now I want to cover something else rather peculiar. So if I say to you, don't think about a pink elephant, what have you just done? Probably, next slide, please. Something like this. You can't not think of something. If I say don't think about something, you've got to create the image in your head and then maybe try and put some sort of X through it or do something to not think about it. So although that's quite amusing, you can actually use this to your advantage. So we can go to the next slide, please. So I'll give you a different example. So imagine you've gone out for the day to some nice stately home somewhere, some really nice manicured gardens. Next slide, please. And you see a sign, something like this, don't walk on the grass. What image has that just put in your mind? Next slide, please. Probably this one, walking on the grass. So it's actually the opposite to what you want. If the sign said keep to the path, you would have created an image in your mind of keeping to the path. But don't walk on the grass. And this is particularly useful with children, because if you say to them, don't put your hand on that hot thing, you've just asked them to put an image in their mind of them putting their hands on a hot thing. So actually what you want to do is ask people what you would like them to do. Don't use the word don't. But we can use this to help ourselves. Next slide, please. So if I say to you, don't think of the last time you were happy. If I say to you, don't think about the funniest thing you heard recently, you can't help but think about it. So if we go to the next slide. So there's three parts to this. The don't bit we've already discussed. Think is actually a sort of a command word. You can't ignore it. Words like notice are very powerful words as well. And whatever the thing is at the end, particularly if it's something that you're struggling, believing you can do or you're capable of, the fact that you've got it in that sentence means it exists. So let's turn this into a practical trick. Next slide, please. So you've got two choices. You can either think about things that you want to achieve and indulge in happy memories and things like that. So don't think about happy memories. Don't think about a warm embrace from someone you love. Or if you're struggling, coming back to that analogy with a penalty, and you keep thinking about the things that are going wrong, flip it around. So if you're worried about a big presentation you've got and being nervous about it, you can say to yourself, don't think about the presentation going really well. So if you flip it around, you can actually trick your mind into thinking of something far more positive. Next slide, please. I think next slide, please. I think I'm sort of repeating myself there. So the key thing there is use that don't think about phrase and also think about the image and the emotion you've got, because you're also affecting what's happening with your reticular activating system, and that's going to help find opportunities to nudge you in that direction to support you in the goal that you want to achieve. Next slide, please. So just one other quick thing I just sort of wanted to share with you for times when you're really sort of struggling and you're going through a difficult period and your thoughts are just sort of going a bit in a place that you'd rather not have them. So if we move to the next slide, please. I normally do a lot more on this. We've only got a limited amount of time, but everything we've ever done or will do started with a thought. But those thoughts can sometimes be a bit deceiving. So if you move to the next slide, please. Maybe the next one, because I'm conscious of time. Ooh, one back. I'm not going to go through this busy slide, but there's lots of different ways in a wonderful book by Mo Gaudat, Solve for Happy, about how our brains and our minds distort the information that we've got in our heads. And we sometimes, memories we've got in the past, we distort what they are. So the punchline really is the next slide, please. Is thoughts aren't facts. And this is something, a very simple mantra that I quite often use. If I find myself in a difficult place with thoughts, I just remind myself, thoughts aren't facts. We have a tendency to think because we thought of it, it must be a fact. But in reality, it seldom is. So next slide, please. And another way you could say it is you could give yourself almost a fact score if it's a thought that's causing you discomfort or displeasure. Next slide, please. So the other twist to this is quite often what I do is if I'm having unpleasant thoughts and not in a good place, I quite simply ask myself, is it a thought that's causing this or my current reality? Because quite often it's not your reality. Although you might be worried about some health issue or financial issues and things like that, it's not actually normally affecting you in the moment unless you're unfortunate enough to be in a war zone or something horrible like that. So quite often it's the thought, and it's that causes us to be uncomfortable. So this is a very quick way for me to remind myself it's probably the thought that's creating that. And sometimes I just ask my mind for another thought. Next slide, please. So and that sort of relates back to this again. It's nudging, which is a favourite word of mine, those thoughts back to things that you actually want to achieve, and just being more aware of when your mind is slipping into the things that are going wrong. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to share 2 quotes with you that meant a lot to me, and hopefully they'll help you. I'm a reformed worrier.
I love this.
I used to be first class at it, which made me a brilliant problem solver because I could imagine everything that will go wrong and put something in place before it ever does. So in terms of project management, brilliant, but not so good in other ways. This, for me, summed it up, because quite often we create catastrophes in our minds. So if I give you a very practical example, your boss recently had a pretty tough word with you. You've now noticed your boss keeps having the HR representative in their office a lot, and your mind is going off, oh my God, they're going to sack me. Something's happened. You know, HR's come in. They had a word with me recently. Well, actually, the reality could be they're thinking about a new promotion for you. They wanted to test you out with a tough question and see if you're ready for it. And they've been talking to the HR department about you getting a new job. But your mind's gone off into realms of catastrophe. So I use this quote a lot to remind myself, is this a fact, or is my mind spinning off into catastrophe? So next slide, please. My second quote that made a big difference for me is this one. So my wonderful wife has been a born optimist, always sees things on the positive side. And I thought, she's just not realistic. As much as I love her, she's just not realistic. And then I saw this quote and I thought, actually, this is quite interesting. So whether you're an optimist or a pessimist may not affect the outcome. It's just that the optimist is having a better time in life. So this convinced me that actually optimism is probably a good place to be. Next slide, please. So that's really the sort of end of my little talk. It's just a reminder of the different things that I do. And now I think it's an opportunity for us to probably open up Insight Genie and have a panel discussion.
Okay, great. So I'll bring us into this view. Brilliant. It's a good time for us to welcome Katie as well. Katie was struggling to get in at the beginning, but she's with us now. Yes, so I guess that's a reminder for the audience that actually we'll probably really be able to drive Genie, Matt, after you've given us your view of how you want to take the solution forward and how you can help the audience and things.
All right,
but
yeah.
I don't know if we quickly whiz around and just give a few feedbacks from us just to reflect on what you've said there. I've picked up a lot of these points on your posts over the last 6 months, and they're a brilliant reminder of these things, because you can grasp this, can't you, one day, and then 2 weeks later you've forgotten it, and another little quick reminder in a LinkedIn post is fantastic. I love that catastrophe quote. I really think about that a lot.
Yeah, I used that a lot. So about 7 years ago, my wife was going through a year of cancer treatment, and our funds were getting a bit iffy. So it was quite a difficult. I used that a lot just to sort of reset my thinking and remind myself, actually, the current reality is, and I'd go for a walk at the time we were living in Shropshire, is I'm in the middle of a field in Shropshire. That's my current reality. Yes, Wendy's having treatment. Things aren't great, but it's not as bad as I'm making it out in my head. And that brought my thoughts back to sort of current practical reality. So, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. If we just do a quick whiz round and then we'll listen to your solution that can help everyone.
Yeah, sure.
And then we can just tap into Jeannie, but we've only got a short time frame because Jeannie shuts at 12:45 on the dot. Okay, so over to you, Ian. And then we've got 15 minutes after that we can all catch up as well.
Yeah, great stuff, Matt. What I like about moving people within, there's a lot of support out there that talks about situations which are in the past which we can do nothing about. What we can do something about is how we see those situations. The part how more of what influences our thinking. I don't know what that sound is. That sound like a train. Yeah, but learning more about what influences our thinking. And one of the things that I came across a while ago was how personality traits create archetypes and attributes. Now, two of you have said that that you have problems with overthinking. Thinking is a skill, and some of us are very good at thinking because of the archetype that we have. And that archetype allows us to see, to drive the standard and always look at what's missing rather than what is there. And they tend to be, in my experience, the overthinkers. And Matt has shown that it can be managed, Anthony.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Over to you, Chris. Just grab your thoughts.
I thought it was excellent. It was really very interesting. And it's nice to see the stuff I see in your posts actually being presented. I'm an unreformed worrier. I worry about everything. I like to look at it as being proactive. I'm identifying potential problems and I'm finding solutions before they are problems. But yeah, it gets in the way. And yeah, it's something that has to be managed.
Okay, fantastic. And over to you, Katie.
Hello, good morning. I'm an partly reformed catastrophist. And that was very, very interesting. And as everybody else has said, reflects a lot of your posts over the last few months. I think it's quite difficult for a lot of people working in the NHS to actually see that there is a future because of past experiences. And I think it's very easy for people to be the catastrophic type because of their experience and because of the uncertainty that still happens. One of the things that I didn't really pick up on until, probably about 10, 15 years ago, was that a long time ago when we were doing team building stuff. And I discovered that I was a plant on the Belbin model. And plants are actually very rare. And to start with, I thought, oh gosh, so I'm not going to find more people like me. How do I take this forward? Now I see it as a real strength. And one of the things that I always say to people is where there are challenges, there's also opportunities. It just might take you a while to see the opportunities. So I try to give people an element of hope that actually try thinking outside the box. I have always thought outside the box, and it's often worked against me. I still can't get out of that mindset, though. And I do look at things very differently, which is why some of the transformation work that I've done has been so successful. I also can actually turn mindsets in teams around quite easily to becoming a lot more positive by painting them, articulating them a vision for the future that they could actually see themselves being part of. When actually, when they come into a room or a meeting, whatever, you see them sitting there with their heads face down, not looking at anybody, and just, I'm in catastrophic mode. I don't know where we're going. I can't deal with this. And actually, by painting them a vision of where they and their services could be, you actually get them actually wanting to take part.
Snap out of it almost.
Making and almost them then thinking that they can actually see a solution. Hands go up, people want to speak, great.
Yeah.
And I think that so much of what you've done actually kind of articulates that. But from my perspective, there are too many people at the moment sitting in catastrophic mode. And there's too many people proselytizing about how leaders should behave, what you should be doing. but actually nothing practical to enable it. And I think that
Okay, that's a brilliant segue, Katie, because Matt can give us a couple of minutes now in terms of his solution about how we can break that cycle. And then we've got just a couple of minutes with Jeannie, and then we've got a bit more time to chat. Matt, can you give us a couple of minutes on the solution, the proposed solution?
Sure. Can you just move to the next slide, please?
Yes. So if I come back to that, that should work. Excellent.
Yeah. So one of the things I was thinking about is, so I do workshops and coaching and things like that, but that gets to a sort of limited number of people. So one of the things I was thinking about was a sort of monthly membership club, and there's various ideas I had in there about sort of training, and that might be 1 minute, 2 minute, 5 minute videos, little snippets, all sorts of sort of golden nuggets and things like that. So mini training courses, and maybe even a community where we can share things. Maybe there's a little session I do once a week or every 2 weeks, sort of ask me anything type things. But I was trying to think of something that could be quite practical and quite useful, because there's a number of discussions I've had with people that are very proud of the fact that's helped them very quickly in just half an hour discussion. So that was the sort of premise. So that little QR code there is if you were interested in that, and to help me, is an opportunity, one, to give me some feedback. There's a couple of questions I've got on there. If you click, follow that QR code, and that will help me get an idea of what would be useful or not useful for people. And if I do then launch this in the future, and you want to be on the shortlist to find out, then I'm happy to do that. So that was my idea about making this more accessible. And I think you made some good points about if we do this more regularly, when I share things, eventually people think, oh, actually that little thing actually might be quite useful, and we're more likely to adopt it. So that was the essence of it.
Okay, great. What are your next slides, Matt? Do you want us to now just almost stop for a couple of minutes and put our thoughts into Jeannie as well, into that?
Yeah, I think so. But I'd also just like to pick up on a couple of the comments. It's interesting, the whole how we think. So there's different models you can use. Belbin was one of them. I'm training something called emergenetics, but a lot of them come up with typically 4 thinking styles and associate a color with them. So I've got 3 thinking styles that are prominent in my head, which is described as having a committee in your head, which explains why procrastination used to be one of the things I was quite good at as well. But if I could just give you a practical example, so particularly people that overthink, one of mine is analytical. So that quite often leads to some overthinking. Whereas my wonderful wife, that's one of the lowest scores in her thinking mind. She's very much get things done, caring about other people and things like that. So my deep need to know why probably fuels a lot of that. But for my dear wife, she doesn't need to know why. She just needs to do, are we doing it? And when are we doing it? So quite often it's just being aware of that thinking style of what ours is. And quite rightly, as Caitlin said, is when you've got a team of people, making sure you've got different thinking styles mixed in together. And I think also the point Katie made about catastrophizing as well, that it comes a bit back to the reticular activating system, because if everyone around you is catastrophizing and painting, as you said, a picture of catastrophe, it's missing the penalty goal rather than ball going in. So you're trying to create a picture of, actually, it might be a smaller net, it might be a smaller ball, because sometimes you just need to nudge across a little bit, but at least can we have a net with something going in the back of it? I don't mind if it's not a ball. So I think that's an important point. And I think the language we use helps with that as well. So sometimes it's just sort of picking up with words. So that was just my thoughts on those comments. Thank you. So I don't know if we've got any comments in the chat or any questions anyone's got. Oh, I can't hear you at the moment, Anthony.
Sorry, I was just saying I'm just typing into Insight Genie as you go through. So if you just want to lead it for a second or grab any other comments from people. I put my mute on just to stop the typing. I didn't want to annoy people.
That's all right. So yeah, while Anthony's setting that up, yeah, I'm just trying to think if there's any other practical. So thinking particularly about the NHS, Katie, do you think there's areas where some of this could be useful?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think the NHS, in so many ways, is sitting waiting for help to actually see a positive way forward that is achievable, doable, and realistic. And actually, in many ways, needs to circumvent finance, because at the moment it's all about cost. There are loads of jobs being advertised, but they're not being filled because there are restrictions that it's for internal applicants only. Well, if there were the internal applicants, there wouldn't be the vacancies. So that's a way of actually saying we're trying to recruit, but actually it's all being controlled by finance. So they're saying, no, we need to balance the books. So it's like, this is what we're saying, and we're quietly doing something completely different. And I think we need, the NHS needs people such as ourselves to be able to show ways and means of doing things which isn't all about money, and actually can improve quality of life for patients in first and foremost. But equally, for me, it's about transforming the working lives of people delivering care. And a lot of that, when they look at the catastrophizing and just what is it like around me, there's just not enough staff. It's actually, well, there are things that you can do. There are tools you can access that will help you to actually quietly get on and do things. And they will actually make you want to come to work, because you see you've got happier patients coming through. So the staff are happier. And it's actually about trying to give them some optimism. And again, it's about articulating that picture of a very different way of working and mindset that actually is quite easy to bring about within the constraints and confines of the bigger picture strategic stuff that NHS and government are doing between them. And it's just like blocking them out. So yeah, I think so much that could be done to help.
In there, Matt.
Sorry?
Can I come in there?
Yeah, sure.
So I think we've got a massive opportunity, because we're beginning to understand more about our responses. We in this group, I learned this word heuristics. I learned that from Anthony. And it's a really good word that allows us to understand that a lot of our thinking and behavior is coming from the past. And it may be aligned with the present, or it may not. And a lot of the time it isn't aligned with the present. But it doesn't really matter whether it's individual or the group. You can almost have a group heuristic, depending on the information they've received that they've come to believe. Or you can have an individual heuristic. You can have either. And that's what we're really struggling against, those heuristics. And they affect every role and the organization itself. And if we could create more constructive and goal-related heuristics, we're going to move into a better position. But it takes this type of detail around how we understand our individual thinking to achieve that. So I think we're moving into a great position with this light that's coming on about how this thinking works.
I think to articulate your point, Ian, is a practical example. So just the way our brains are, we pick up a lot of these heuristics, these habits up to the age of 7, because our conscious mind doesn't develop properly, so it just soaks everything up. So a classic one in most cultures, quite rightly, is don't talk to strangers. Brilliant advice when you're a youngster. Now you're an adult and you're in a networking situation in a sales job.
Yeah.
So depending on how well that plays in your head and how well you were programmed, for want of a better phrase, when you were younger, it's like, oh God, I get really nervous and rejection and all that sort of stuff. So that's just a very simplistic example. There's this, you're right, stuff whirling around in our head saying, well, watch out, don't talk to strangers. They're scary things. So yeah, there's a lot of that. And I guess the starting point for me is, what are the things we can learn to do that we can control ourselves? So a post I did this morning is about dealing with difficult, toxic people that, the people that just, when you see them, you just, you feel like that. So my simple tip, because I've done it myself a number of times, I had to find a way, was to think about, rather than thinking, oh, you, whatever, is to feel utter sympathy for them and empathy, that something horrific must have happened to them, that they're so unpleasant, and shout and scream. But that's a simple example of being in control of what we're doing, rather than, because most of our mental pain comes from not feeling in control of things. And the same with the NHS. It's like, I can't control this. There's the budgets, nobody will listen to me. There's the new project idea I put forward, no one will listen to me. So it's about what we can.
It's about where we shine our spotlight, isn't it? I'm sure I've had this conversation with you, Matt, at some point on the spotlight thing.
Yeah.
I'll just bring together these points if I can, just quickly. Ian's point around the heuristics and this comment that's come up from John Paul and tying it into Katie. We've got to use the right heuristics at the right time in the right context. And it's all about that balance. And we need this sort of matching catastrophists with optimists, so that it's all about pulling in the right heuristics at the right time so that we avoid bias and develop the best solutions. So it all ties together beautifully.
Yeah, I mean, to echo that point as well, I've never actually done this, but I've explained it in workshops. And this comes down to sometimes confidence in ourselves. So if you've got a room of, imagine 100 people, and got them to write down on a piece of paper what comes naturally to them, what are they good at? So for me, it will be numbers, equations, analysing things like that. And then you got them really comfortable and said, now write down a bit more on your list, the things that are so obvious to you, you don't value them. You think they're a waste because they're so obvious to you. They must be obvious to someone else. Write those on a list, and then share your bit of paper with someone else. Or everyone swap it, and that, I guarantee you, people go, oh my God, you find that easy? I find that, or I really struggle to do that. So again, it ties into that thing of understanding what we're innately good at and cherishing that, welcoming it, and seeing where we can sort of best use it, in particularly in an organisation like the NHS. And sometimes those natural abilities and skills have been hijacked by other things that are going on. So it's.
If can I just add to that, Matt? If the locksmith turned up at your house and you locked out your front door, and he comes and talks to you about how you feel about it, etc., but he doesn't get you in, it might be therapeutic, but it's not necessarily helpful, right?
Yeah.
But the other thing is that part of this thing is us adapting the way we think from the habitual that says, I do this, encompass the alternative, which is also your I. So there has to be this ability to adapt as well that we've got to encourage. That seems to be one of the world's best kept secrets at the moment, that people can actually adapt the way they think. You know, that's what surprised me when I moved into this world.
Yeah, I use the phrase ACE to describe what I do. So A is for awareness, just thinking, oh right, I didn't realise that was going on in my mind. The C is for choosing a different response. So rather than the old habit I had, and the E is embedding it as my new chosen habit, not one that I just picked up when I was 7 years old or whatever it was.
Agreed.
Something that I've picked up along the way. So yeah, I was thinking also back, Katie, what you said. I've got to be careful how I say this, but there was a guy I knew that used to be a finance director. So he pointed this comment towards finance directors, ended up running his own business. But he said sometimes people understand the cost of everything and the value of nothing. So coming back to your point about budgets, things like that. So it's going to cost us £2,000. Okay, but what's the value? What's it going to actually help? Oh, actually, we might get to this goal quicker. Oh yeah, but it's going to cost us £2,000. Yeah, but it might get us to that goal quicker. No, I told you it's £2,000.
Can I just respond to that? I hope this won't give people a bit of a downer, but over the last year, I have heard myself and heard back from various colleagues that they have also heard this from exec directors, so directors of finance, but also directors of strategy and transformation, and and HR. And I heard them say, well, what have patients got to do with me? My immediate reaction, apart from anger, how can you say that this is the NHS? And I have articulated on a few occasions, which has caused them to stop and think. Last time I looked, the NHS was a healthcare organisation. It wasn't aspiring to join the FTSE 100. And actually, you were more cost conscious about how things were done. You would actually be looking at transformational and innovation that actually costs no more than we're paying already, but does a hell of a lot more for a hell of a lot more people, both in terms of our patients, but also for the staff. Again, it's actually about you can't just slash and burn. Let's get rid of that line of budget. It's actually about what is being cost efficient and cost effective and more productive, and they're not looking at that. And I think there are ways that we can do this at much more local level. But I mean, that for me, it's just I tucked it up. And I thought, well, if I ever get a review in a room by myself, it's only going to be one person coming out.
This is another example, though, of Matt's cognitive distortion, because people, and I also think it's a leadership problem, because we've got to be made aware what the purpose is. And sometimes we assume that when you're saving money according to the purpose, when actually you're just saving money because you think it's your job. It's the same. I think Jim's just put that up in the thing. It's the same in policing, that people are siloed in their, well, this is what I do, but they're not actually linking it to the overall purpose. I'm sure we've made these points many times in our posts.
That's actually what I was just going to say. Different departments or different teams siloing with their own purpose, their own vision, and no one's talking to each other. Yes. And there's nobody at the top or somewhere in there trying to bring the different teams and departments together with a central purpose, with a central vision, which should be the customer, or in this case, should be the patient.
Yes.
I think in this day and age as well, it demonstrates how separate finance teams have become from actually what we are there to deliver. And it makes me very cross, because there's so much that we could be doing that will be so much. We get so much more bang for our bucks if we could actually do it, but they're just not interested in it. And the one of the interim directors of finance transported in to do financial transformation, and was doing slash and burn. And I then discovered that he was getting paid £2,000 a day to come and do this. And I thought, well, over a year, that's $500,000. Why have we got you? Because you're not saving that in terms of. You may be saving it in terms of real cost on the books, but that has absolutely no relation to actually translating that into improving healthcare within a budget and saving money potentially. And again, that comes back to that comment: what have patients got to do with me? I no idea how much it's got to do with you.
About a year and a half ago, I had to see our local GP for something that was causing me some issues, and she wasn't particularly helpful. So I said to her, which I don't think she took well to, I said, "There's only 3 things that I want you to worry about." And she said, "What's that?" I said, 1, please treat me as a customer, because I am. I know I'm paying through my taxes, but I am a customer. 2, you need to get to the root cause of what my issue is as fast as possible, please. And 3, when you've got to the root cause, can you project manage the solution? Those are the only 3 things you should be concerned about, not trying to dissuade me from it. And she sort of looked at me and went, well, I don't know, I'm not sure about that. But for me, those are the 3 things. I'm a customer, get to the root cause and project manage it. If you do that, fantastic.
Can I just steer us to Sue's comment and just do a bit of a segment and bring us back to the solution focus? So I believe that we all agree on this panel that Matt's work can definitely be a piece of the jigsaw to help us in this reform that we need. And I'll just quickly bring up a quick snapshot of the Insight Genie, because we can develop that and bring that again to the focus on the solution to help Matt as well. So let me just share screen. Screen and Genie share. Has that come up?
Yep.
Okay, great. So pretty much great feedback, positive in terms of what you're talking us through, Matt. Really, really good. Top 5 insights: enthusiastic reception, digital strategy success, online presence, especially LinkedIn, is resonating with audiences, subscription interest. So there is a positive interest in the subscription model. but affordability's got to be a real key thing.
Yeah.
And I would say there, it's how do we show that what you're doing is generating more value than your cost? Now, for me, that'll be a no-brainer, but it might not be as obvious for other people.
Yeah.
What that is making me think as well is in my mind, we want to do massive things at an industrial scale. Back to your initial goal as well.
Yeah.
Is how do we almost get you in front of managers so that you almost become a support tool and coach to their team members, so that when they're having these negative thoughts that are not productive and helpful, they could almost tap into you as a team member. That might be much more cost-effective model for everybody doing it that sort of way, was my thoughts.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought. And because I've been in CEO roles, I understand the challenge that they've got. So I can relate and empathise with them and the practical stuff as well. So yeah.
Yeah. And then getting into quick wins, I think leveraging this LinkedIn work that you're doing, how do we, as a group, magnify that, give you more presence so that you can reach out to more people, feels like a sensible approach. Workshops and that low subscription pilot again. So we haven't got time to go through this now, but there's some detail that I'll obviously forward this on to you, Matt, afterwards.
Thank you. Yeah.
And hopefully this can be helpful. But that's my vision. This is my sort of vision and we've been talking about it, haven't we? How do we bring all these things together? How do we bring the optimists and the pessimists together so we've got different perspectives so that we can generate the right results?
Definitely. Could you be kind enough to maybe bring the QR code up again for my little questionnaire? Because seeing as Insight Genie has said people are interested, then if people do want to share a bit more detail with me, that will be wonderful. That will help me tune and tweak what I'm thinking of doing. So that'd be great. The other interesting thing is thinking about workshops that I've done. I designed them so that people don't have to share anything of what's going on in their minds if they want to, but inevitably you get one or two people that are very brave and share some practical things that are going on, and the camaraderie that brings as an added benefit. And I've seen then these sort of little mini teams that have been through the workshop that then are out looking out for each other and become their own little beacon to other people. So there's a sort of added advantage that comes with those workshops. It's just not 6, 10, whatever it is, 12 people getting some stuff. It's actually that collective thing. So it's interesting that workshops came up there in Insight Genie.
Yeah, fantastic. A final little comment from JP. I think this does link to the latest Wes Streeting speech that we had last week. We definitely need a positive mindset for this reform.
Yeah, definitely. I was just seeing John Paul's comment about cost savings, and I actually come from an industry. I was in automotive and aerospace before, where we had to do year-on-year cost down reductions for our customers, 6%. So that's sort of inbuilt in me, but we still made improvements all the time. So maybe, I'm just thinking, look, seeing John Paul's thing, that I know from experience there is a way of doing both, but maybe that's an area that we could spend a bit more time on as well. The reformed warrior in me is still a very good problem solver. So.
Exactly.
Well, we've got that
ability, using him when he's needed.
Yeah. That hour has gone really, really quickly. So we've got 2 minutes left. Shall we just whiz through everybody's last thoughts?
Sure.
Do you want to finish, Matt? I'll just kick off then. So I'm really pleased that you joined us today. I think you've given us massive food for thought. I know that there's quite a few people that end up watching the recordings, so I'm hoping that you will reach quite a few people, especially over the weekend when people get a bit more time. So just a big thanks for me, and I'd anybody in the audience that likes these events, please contribute, help us on this reform journey. Share this with your colleagues and your friends. And reach out to me if you want to get involved with either your own topic of reform, or you want to join us on a panel one week on a particular topic. That would be fantastic. Over to you, Ian.
There are solutions in doing things differently. Our problem is we like to do things the same way, and that's what's going to change everything. And I know people get a little bit gloomy, but that's really just what's got to happen.
Yeah, brilliant summary. Chris?
I really like that, Ian. That was really well said. At the beginning, Matt, you said that you wanted to have 10 people saying thank you, or you changed some aspect of my life on a daily basis. And it is a big goal. There's no doubt about that. But I think if you are out here sharing this sort of stuff on a regular basis on LinkedIn and these other similar events, I think it's a lot closer than you think it is.
Thank you.
Yeah, nice positive message. Katie.
I think there's so many positives from this presentation, and I think that a lot of collaborative working would be extremely useful. I would agree with Ian that at the moment there are so many people who have got their heads down and are just working within their comfort zone because outside of it looks too difficult. And I think it's about changing mindsets, and it's about changing mindsets as you go higher and higher up the hierarchy of the NHS, because that it's at the top is where it's all sat. And dear Wes yesterday has basically added more penalties in, and it's all about culpability, blame. What I would like to see, quite frankly, is corporate liability, and for people making those decisions that when they're later discovered to go wrong, that they're held to account. And of course, NHSE Central and Executive and DH and the boards, the board members as well, are never, ever held to account. And I think what we need to be doing is actually trying to raise that level of awareness that you cannot just swan in and say, we're going to have league tables and you're going to get penalized, because it's going to just cause more problems. But those that made those decisions really need to be held to account in the bigger scheme of things. There's so much.
I think that's going to be a whole new live session all on its own, that one, Katie.
Yeah, there's so much.
That would be a good one.
At local level, so much positive stuff that we can do at local level, and I think this
brilliant.
high.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And for you to close then, Matt.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much, everyone, for attending and your feedback. I was thinking about two things, really. One, what I try and share are very practical things that people can use. And I was also thinking about that cost versus value. So when we're stressed and worried, our IQ drops by about 10 or 15 points. I don't know about everyone else, but I can't afford to lose that. So when we find it, thinking of it from a cost point of view, if we put people in a better place, their productivity, their creativity to solve problems increases significantly. It's just a fact. And when we've already got a huge pool of talent, the vast majority of people whose hearts are really in it and really want to help, you've got a great starting point. We just need to give people the tools to lift them out of that unpleasant place and unleash the possibility. I guess that's my closing thought, I guess.
Yeah, brilliant. It sets us up nicely. Positive message for the weekend.
Definitely.
Yeah, great stuff. Thanks, everybody. You'll be able to pick this recording up on LinkedIn, and you can share it to your friends and colleagues with the main event link. Thanks ever so much, everyone.
Thank
See you soon.
Thanks, Matt.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.